Welcome to Beyond Barber School. I am your host, Barbara Doza. This podcast, Beyond Barber School, is a space where listeners will hear stories from barbers, educators, and founders that are elevating the barbering industry in and out of the barbershop. Our hope here is to empower barbers with the knowledge necessary to take a courageous next step in their barber journey. Welcome to Beyond Barber School. Today we are lucky. We get to sit down with Zach Ignacio. Zach is a licensed barber and educator. He's based out of the Bay, San Jose. He works with Paradox, and he's also an educator and ambassador for Statement Grooming. I briefly met Zach at the very end of BarberCon LA. It was legit. We were walking out like in the parking lot back to our cars, and I had seen Zach. He taught a class earlier that day in the VIP kind of like workshop of BarberCon, and I got a chance to hear him teach with some of the other statement educators, and just wanted to like introduce myself briefly on the way out and say, hey, I really enjoyed your class. And here we are. We now get a chance to sit down, and yeah, I'm super excited to dive into a little bit more about his story. And so, Zach, welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you, and we'll start with just some background. Where are you from, and how did you get into barbering?
Yeah, so thank you again for having me on this podcast. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity that I get to talk with you today. But basically, as you said, I'm originally from the Bay Area, born and raised. Currently living in San Jose. And pretty much how I got into barbering was very long ago. Like every Sunday, it would be me, my brother, and my dad. We go to our regular Vietnamese salon. And I was just so intrigued with like just haircutting at that point. I think that just the art uh, and the way that my hairstylist would move, because they would normally have a space towards the mirror, and I'd just be so interested in like what they would do. And then following up to junior high when tapers and ice picks were pretty much more of a fashion for barbering. I was always like, damn, where are all my friends getting these haircuts at? And it was tough to find a barber that actually did it because it was very rare back then. Um, but it happened in junior high. One of my friends that I asked, I was like yo, like what's the scoop? Like, where did I get this haircut at? And it he was telling me that it was mainly a black owned barbershop that you got to go to, aside from your regular salon. So pretty much there was this one shop in Fremont called KJ's, um, and it was barely known. It was a small black owned shop and very intimidating to walk into. Again, it wasn't any of like your highlight salon. It was more so grungy, very dark, very few lighting. So it was hard to even just talk to a barber back then. But the moment that I stepped in, and I smelled like the cool care, you know, the sheen spray, all that stuff. I was like, yeah, this is definitely the spot. So my first barber, I forgot what his name was, but um, he saw how outgrown my hair was, and he was like, "Have you ever gotten a taper before?" I was like, "I don't even know what that is, but I know what it looks like."
Sure.
But pretty much, he was asking me like, "All right, I'm gonna hook you up." So I pretty much let my barber do his thing, and usually with the Vietnamese salon, they take 10, 15 minutes. And for this cut, it took pretty much close to an hour. So I was like, so they're so I'm really paying attention to detail and how detailed this cut is. So even just that alone, like even helped me even understand like, wow, my barber's really paying close attention to detail. Has me the mirror, and I'm just like, yeah, this thing's crispy. You know what I mean? This is what I want. And the thing is too, like I never knew that my sideburns can even go as low as my jaw. So I was like, yeah, this is it. Pulling up to junior high with a fresh cut, was a thing. So this was like back in 2007,
Hmm.
when I was in seventh grade. So, these cuts have definitely been, you know, been out there for a while. But yeah, definitely that's how I got my thing into barbering. And then pretty much after that, um, got exposed to a couple of my homies that were already garage barbers.
Hmm.
And just seeing the lifestyle of just just hanging out with your homies and chopping it up while still getting chopped up, is was a pretty cool lifestyle. So by summer 2011, ended up cutting my own hair, and then at that point, I got a lot of homies pretty much asking me, um, where did you get your hair cut? I was like, oh, I just cut my own hair, and pretty much that's how everybody else was asking me like, oh, you should cut me sometime. All right. Well, I didn't know how much to charge, so I was only charging like $2, $3 at first. I was
Yeah.
like I didn't really care. Like I was just trying to do it, just because it was the
Hmm.
homie. So that's pretty much how I got introduced to barbering.
Dang, you saying ice picks just like threw me back. Like that was,
Oh,
man.
that was the
It's
thing back then.
It was. I remember. Yeah, I have a similar story actually. I was just going to like supercuts for the longest time, and then a buddy of
Hmm.
mine just had like a fresh. He just had a fresh cut. I didn't even know to call it a fade. I just was like, that was a fresh haircut.
Hmm.
Asked him where he went. It was a similar thing. He's like, you got to go over here, and like he'll take care of you. And yeah, I
Yep.
think he was the first. He like gave me the same thing. Like he gave me
Yep.
ice
Yep.
pick sideways. I was like, I didn't know this was possible. Like it's like your
and
life
back and back.
transformation.
Bro. And back then in 2007, it wasn't even really as high def quality as it is now. Like,
Mm,
I always refer to this, like, back then in 2007, where all these haircuts kind of got way, it was like PS1 graphics. Now we're in like PS5 graphics where everything's so high def.
that's a
So we were
great
so intrigued, like,
analogy.
it's only gonna even get more advanced as we go. So
Sure.
yeah, for
So,
sure.
okay, so you started cutting your own hair. Was that like the first haircut you ever gave was on yourself?
I was already intrigued with the art of cutting hair. Why don't I just put a taper on myself, right?
Hmm.
And at that time, there was very, very limited YouTube available. It wasn't even YouTube Academy yet,
Sure.
and very few videos of how you could taper yourself. And the only video available was Cake and his Randy,
I was gonna
and
ask if it
at
was Randy.
it was Randy, bro. And the thing is, like, again, like you're looking at a 480p video. This isn't even HD quality yet, right? So you're trying to look into every detail on that, and to try to copy that was crazy, right? So, I mean, you live and you learn, right? So you learn off your failures. So I failed literally 5 times on my own head, and I had to go bald 5 times on my own head before I could even really put myself in a position where I wanted to show off my cut. So I was always
Mm,
rocking hats, for the most part, so they look fresh underneath,
yeah.
regardless, right? But yeah, so that's pretty much how I started cutting my own hair. And at the time too, like, self cut system was even available. So I would have like a stand mirror, and then I would have a hand mirror, and would face it towards me and try to get the correct angle, like in yellow lighting, so you can't even see anything.
Hmm.
So at that point, it was even just as hard to even just cut your own hair. But eventually, the more and more that I did it, I got a little bit more better. And at this point, I was only doing the buzz, so it made it that much more easier.
That makes sense. And then
Yeah,
okay. So yeah, and then you're now kind of the portfolio, you're the walking kind of ad. If someone asks you like where you got your cut, it's like, oh, I did it. It's probably
for,
easier that way even to gain clients.
for sure, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So then let's fast forward, I guess, after high school. So it sounds like you're already cutting, right?
Hmm.
The homies in high school. So you drop out of community college to pursue barbering. Talk to us about that.
Dropping out of college was like maybe the toughest part to do, and even just tell my mom, um, that I was dropping out. But thinking about community college, I was in there for almost about, I want to say almost about 4 years. I was taking up accounting, or was planning to take up accounting, but I just kept, doing regular classes and whatnot to get there. But didn't really have any interest, in sitting in the classroom and doing homework, trying to meet deadlines. Even just with projects and stuff. And that was really not my thing. Um, living up to those 4 years. But it's hard because coming as the oldest child of three, and you tell your family that, it's like it's kind of sad because you're not pursuing the road that they paved for you.
Hmm.
But I told myself, as soon as I dropped out of community college, I was already thinking about barber school, because I had to pursue something, and I
Yeah.
wasn't just gonna take a break.
Yeah.
So when barber school came into mind, I was already trying to focus my interest on going to barber school. Um, but yeah, that whole thing with dropping out of school definitely wasn't for me. Um, and I wasn't even trying to pay tuition for something that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So would I put myself in a position where I'm just paying for something that my parents would love for me to do, or is it something that I'm gonna invest in barber school that's gonna pave a passion for me to love to want to do something?
Yeah.
So that was my whole reason for dropping out of barber school for sure.
Yeah. So obviously it's like there's challenge with family. I mean, I resonate with that. I
Hmm.
was even talking to a barber the other day who came from like a immigrant family. He was the oldest like child, oldest grandchild, and similar kind of conversation. His parents were like, "I want you to, you know, be a doctor, or like be a lawyer, or et
Hmm.
cetera." And he was saying, "Yeah, that's not for me." And just
Yeah.
that's us. That's even yeah. Sometimes you have a vision and the vision, you believe in the vision. Sometimes family maybe don't understand it in the short term, but there's typically other people who are encouraging about it and saying like, yeah, you should do it. So like, did you have people who were on the other side of saying like, hey man, you got to go to barber school, man. Like you're actually good at this. Like were there people like that encouraging you to do it?
um I wouldn't say it was honestly myself. Like, just knowing how far I already done came, like with barbering, overall, and just reflecting back on what are my other choices outside of college, that I can do. I mean, I've always been told that you don't need to go to barber school because barbers don't make money,
Mm,
obviously.
mm,
But I wanted to see what was on the other side of that hill, right?
yeah,
You're never gonna know until you're actually in that. So my reason for even going to barber school was just to see what's in the industry for me.
yeah,
Explore my opportunities in there and kind of discover what's past barber school, because I don't know. Nobody even knew back in um, 2015 that
sure,
I went in.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, even all of that, even barber schools are still new, even in the Bay Area. There was only very few that you go to. I know one of the most popular ones was Moeller,
mm,
but I didn't want to go all the way out to Oakland,
mm,
just to even get my barber's license. But I went all out to Concord at Urban Barber College. But yeah, just that overall, like just stepping foot into barber college really
mm.
put more opportunities in my lane for sure.
Hey there. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you're enjoying it and you want to learn more from my content, I highly recommend subscribing to my weekly newsletter called The Guideline. It's an email newsletter that's really the best place to stay connected to all things Barbadoza. You can sign up through the link in the show notes or go to my website at barbadoza.com. All right, let's get back to the show. Okay, so you finished barber college. Talk to us about like post barber school. You get your license. How'd you get connected to Paradox? Was that right out of school, or when did that happen?
So shout out to Ryan. Him and his cousin Nico um, were in the same class as me um, when I transferred over to Urban in San Jose. Um, and it was funny because we were introducing ourselves in front of the class, and I already had my eye on Paradox previously before they even were in my class. So I would always, and this story is funny because I would always ghost follow Taper Gang, which consisted of Don, Jordan, and JR. I would literally just look at their work all the time on Instagram and be like so inspired, like, damn, I really want my tapers to look like this, my hooks to look like this, my designs to look like this. And that's what really inspired me first. So that's a little backstory of its own.
Mm-hmm.
But fast forward into that class, um, Ryan was the one that was saying that he interned, or he's a receptionist at Paradox, and I was like, Paradox. I was like, you know Paradox? I was like, you know Don and all them, da da. And he was like, yeah, we work with them over there at Paradox. I was like, oh, I didn't even know it opened yet. So they opened way back, and pretty much just got close to Ryan, and then at that point we would already develop this friendship and relationship at that point, and then um, he brought me to the shop one time, and then it was just more so like a kick it, and that's how I got pretty much close to all the Paradox boys at that point.
Okay. So wait, so you started working for them straight out of college then?
Straight out of college, yeah,
Oh, so
yeah,
you've
straight
been
out
with
of
them.
barber school. So
Yeah, the barber
for
school.
so I've been with Paradox definitely for like, yeah, since the beginning, like 7 years I want to say, because it's about to be
Okay.
8 years now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Dang. Okay, so I was doing some research. Paradox won Best Barbershop in Silicon Valley in
Mhm.
2021. What, in your opinion, what makes Paradox so special?
Um, Not to compare to like, I mean, obviously it's going to be a comparison towards all shops, but I
Mm,
think it's the camaraderie that we have with our whole team. Um, you know, having a team of 24, is special, because you don't get that in any shop. And the fact that, no one's high or below, we're all at the same path that we want to be on. We're at equal balance, is something special for me. And that's what allows us to continue to grow as a team, versus individually, right? So I feel like any new barber that's able to see that is able to inspire them to still grow within a team, right? Um, I've always learned this best is that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to, you know, grow, grow as a team. But pretty much to me, like what separates in terms of service, we're always progressing, into the modern space. With Paradox overall, it's a classic, it's a classic take on a modern in the modern space. So that's pretty much what it is with Paradox.
Okay, so we did meet briefly, right, at BarberCon, and you were educating,
Hmm.
right? You're an educator for Statement Grooming. So you mentioned actually during that session, it was your first time, or maybe you mentioned it, or I don't know if Jules had mentioned it. It was your first time live educating for Statement on a stage. Uh,
Hmm.
how was that? Talk to us about it.
I was nervous, bro. I mean, it's just point blank nervous. Obviously, knowing LA and just having a sense that when you're looked at, it's like sometimes in my head, it's like, who is this guy? And what does this guy have to provide for me? It's very intimidating. And, for me to try to look past that was very hard. Um, because obviously I could spit knowledge, whatever, da, 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 but at the end of the day, LA doesn't know me. So it's like, you know, the fact that I'm up there on stage was a grateful opportunity, obviously, to be side by side with, Jules and Soph. So I mean, I was just soaking up the moment overall. Like I didn't even want to talk, to be honest. I just wanted to cut hair. But the fact that I was up on stage, able to absorb as much energy as possible was great.
Yeah. How did you get connected to Statement? How'd that even happen?
So pretty much how I got connected to Statement was Jules like was trying to get a hold of me through Instagram. Would just be like, "Yo, bro," and then at that point it was dead. It was dead talk for like a week, and then he hit me back up like, "Yo, bro." I was like, "Yo," and then he was like, "Can you get on call?" I was like, "Yeah, definitely." He's gonna call, and pretty much straightforward went into it like, "I have an opportunity for you. Um, we're holding this ambassador team, and we want you to come educate for it. That's not word for word, but
Sure.
want you to come educate with Statement." And right then and there, I was already excited to even just take the opportunity because who wouldn't want to take that opportunity? Um, and pretty much accepted it from there. And yeah, pretty much just got introduced straight from Jules.
Had you and you had you'd been doing education though prior, right? Like this wasn't like
Hmm.
you never taught. So like how long had you been like educating?
Prior to statement, I was already educating for about 3 years. Um, and it was a heavy process because obviously you don't just jump into just an educator role. Like it starts somewhere.
Yeah.
So to already have that underneath my belt made me even more comfortable to take the position. Um, and allowing statement to strengthen my word in knowledge overall. So the statement overall it's really helped me to execute and deliver knowledge a lot more better for sure.
Yeah. That's good. So yeah, talk to us about some of those workshops. It looks like Statement's been offering more
Hmm.
workshops lately, expanding education team. I know, think you and a lot of the people on the team, or the entire team, was even featured in that Barber Evo, I think,
Hmm.
article or section. What would someone expect out of a workshop, like if they were to go to a statement workshop? Like what can you talk to us about what they'd expect?
Within these statement workshops, at least when I'm teaching, it's literally the balance between haircut and using the product to create the overall finish, and to help people understand that you don't want to just mold a specific hairstyle with the product, and being able to use that to enhance the person's physical features in the hair and utilizing the product. So more so it's more geared obviously to statement product, but what to expect is just to get a more creative way, or a more creative understanding of how to cut hair and how to use product to create more creativity within your work.
Hmm. That makes sense.
Hmm.
I'll shout out my barber instructor Andre for this line that he taught me in school. He said the foundation to any good hairstyle is a good haircut,
Hmm.
right? A hairstyle shouldn't be using product to like correct a bad haircut. And also, it'd probably be easier to style your hair if you had a good haircut, you know?
For
And
sure.
then, right, the
It-
foundation for a good haircut is even understanding the foundation of someone's uh, structure, bone structure, texture, etc. And
mhm.
so, yeah, product should not be like, oh, let me just throw some product in here and make it look good.
Exactly. Like, why are you even using the product if you don't even understand why you're even using it at first?
Mm,
You know what I mean?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Jules said something when you're on stage. He actually said, he was like, Zach's probably the most technical educator that's on this stage right now, and that stood out to
Yeah.
me. Yeah, I do. I
Yeah.
remember him saying that. Uh, where does that technical perspective come from for you?
Honestly, I could track back all the way to like just even the beginning before barbering, whereas like, my hobbies back then were like I was in kung fu. So kung fu literally taught me how to, use correct form. So obviously we'd have to use correct form and deliver these sets in order to get to the next belt. So that was one. Also too, I was heavy in b-boying back then too. So I was dancing and b-boying, doing competitions back then. So that actually helped me, you know, cater that style into barbering now, where you want to look professional, right? You want to think that you are a professional when you're what's it called, delivering these type of techniques to a crowd, right? So so form and obviously style, like you put those two together, and now it's the birth of how I am as a barber. So the technicality part um actually came from uh when I took my first Menspire course. I think that literally like helped everything, helped me understand just my delivery, um, with just even just cutting hair. Like I feel like a lot of people are so intrigued with how barbers cut hair, like how they utilize their scissors, how they utilize their comb, how they're standing, position, all of that. So that all mattered to me. But the whole technicality part really came from just really breaking down a cut and really fully understanding why you're doing certain stuff. Um, Pretty much played a whole role into my technicality
Yeah.
space.
I mean, What do you consider yourself a technical barber? Like, even I don't know if you remember him saying that, but like when he called you, like, yeah, he's probably the most technical out here. Like, do you even think of yourself in that way, or are you just saying that's just me?
I feel like it's just me because I'm super particular in what I do. I feel like I'm just super OCD sometimes too when it comes down to the fine detail. Um, but I'm really in terms of hair cutting, I'm really trying to find a way where I can kind of reposition myself out of technic out of technicality because sometimes like hair doesn't even really have to be as technical, right? Like I don't want to create a harder lane for somebody to come up in where it doesn't need to be hard, right? So again,
Sure.
technicality is everything, but at the same time, if you want your work as clean as possible, then you get clean results, right? So
Yeah.
that's the reason why I stay technical and all and everything.
I've never heard a barber compare like b-boying to haircutting, but I mean it totally makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
uh I'll even use this example. My grandfather was a jazz musician. And I remember when I played saxophone like for a little bit growing up. And I remember
Hmm.
taking a lesson from him, and I would go watch him play, jazz. And he was doing some wild, he was, improvising and doing all that. And when I went to go take a lesson from him, he would just make me play scales, and that
Hmm.
was it. And it was like Christmas time, and I was playing this Christmas song, and I was trying to just kind of improv on it, and he stopped me. He was like,
Yeah.
"You can't do that yet." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "You need to learn the fundamentals. You need to learn your scales
Hmm.
first. You have
Yeah.
to like master the foundations first, and then you
Hmm.
can do all the other stuff. But you can't jump to be, free form unless you understand like what it is that you're doing." Which I don't know. That's kind of how I hear you almost say. Like, I think there should be that technical foundation that every barber does learn, that baseline foundation, so that the improving and the creativity, like all of that stuff, can be easier and more freeform. But if you
Hmm.
try to just skip like the technical understanding, you might mess somebody up, and you're like, "Oh, I need just
Exactly.
freeform." It's like, I don't know yet. You actually might need to get that technical go back to your roots before you start trying something crazy.
Exactly. And that's something that I want to elaborate on too, right? With technicality, it's obviously advanced, but at the same time, if you don't fully understand your foundation first, then you can't move, like how these professionals move who've already mastered the foundations of it, right? So mastering every little step of the way already creates that technicality in a sense, right? And it already makes you look like you're technically, sound,
Mm,
right? Because the way that you move, I mean, even with like b-boying, right? Like, when you dance, you can establish who's a beginner and who's an advanced type of dancer. Da, da, da. But same thing with cutting. You can understand when they're holding their scissors. Like you can see who's a beginner at holding their scissors when they flick it in and out, right? So you relate those two together, and understanding your foundation first and building off of that can really help you into
mm.
a more advanced state.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I guess in
Yeah.
b-boying too, you probably you don't want to miss those steps. You might end up hurting yourself.
Oh, for
You actually
sure.
could be
For
dangerous
sure.
for you. And
Yeah.
in cutting, I mean in cutting too, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you might end up hurting yourself, or God forbid, hurting your client or really messing up your client.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that connection of martial arts, even in b-boying, like I'm gonna
Hmm.
lock that one away for sure. Um, I wanted to circle back. Actually, you mentioned Menspire. When did you go to Menspire? What year was that?
um, when did I go to Men's Fire? I think it was like 2017. It was like their first like North America tour,
Okay.
and I was surprised that I didn't sell out. And like this was like one of the classes that you needed to take to
Mm,
understand scissoring. I mean, at that point too, like before, like I mean, it was still very new into the scissor game. But for me to make that jump in investing that money to the class, I was like, if I'm if I'm going to learn how to use scissors, I need to learn from the best.
mm,
So the best back then was definitely Menspire. With
mhm,
all their crazy ass sectioning,
mm.
scissor techniques, I was like, yeah, I need to for sure take this class.
Yeah. Where was that in LA? or where was it?
So they made their first trip into San Francisco.
Oh,
It was called the Joint SF. Yeah, small barbershop. Um, and what was crazy is one of our current barbers at Paradox, Eric, he actually took the course with me. Um, and yeah, I think from that point on, like we established that connection together. Now he's been part of Paradox. So yeah.
nice. Okay, well, let's talk about I mean, you've accomplished a lot already, right, in your
hmm
career, but what's your vision moving forward? Like what else is left? What else are you hoping to accomplish?
Honestly, it's work life balance. Like to continue to keep up with my clientele whether I'm in and out of the shop educating. Um, but my overall goal is to continue to spread word. You know, just give knowledge back because I feel like right now I'm at a certain point where it's needed in the industry. Like knowledge should not be kept a secret. So for me to continue to do classes, in and out of state with statement, in and out of state with a JUCO paradox, you know, I feel like it's forming a roadmap for me to continue to inspire the young generation to come up either as a barber or even just as a person themselves. Um, that's definitely my overall goal right now.
How's how is that work life balance going right now? I mean,
It's hectic,
I know
man.
it's been hard for
Yeah.
us to even schedule coordinate this because I mean I've been busy, you've been busy, but yeah, how is that right now?
Oh man, I mean, it's obviously a challenge every day, but I love it. I love challenges, and that's the reason why you wake up every day is to attack that challenge so that you have a reason to pursue the next day and the next future. After that day, but definitely working on myself. You know, personally. Emotionally, spiritually, physically, whatever you have, but work life balance, especially if you're trying to get to a higher route in any position is very crucial in your journey for sure is to learn how to balance your family, learn how to balance your friends, learn how to balance work, clients, traveling, this wedding that I got to pay for or plan for. So
Pay
yeah,
and plan.
pay and plan for. So yeah, so it's not that it's a lot, but I've really have been. I think something that's really helped me is to obviously express my gratitude towards others and not only express gratitude, but to also have that time, whether it's in the gym or whether it's in meditation, for me to calm my mind down. Because obviously, when you're making decisions, you want to make it relaxed and you don't want to react more so. So, more so, I'm trying to improve my reactability, if I
Mm,
would say,
mm,
to certain situations, and just to be calm in the present moment. I feel like nowadays it's just so fast again that a lot of people are reacting in so many different ways instead of kind of pulling back and really rethinking their decisions or how they want to react to certain situations. But we can't control everything. You know what I
mm.
mean? You can
Yeah.
only control what you can't control. So.
That's good. Was this for you? Like even the topic of work life balance. I feel like I've been seeing it a little bit more lately,
hmm
and even
yeah.
like at the culture at large, just even like prioritizing like mental health.
hmm
Even barbers like setting boundaries for themselves and like creating a schedule and sticking to your schedule and not, even with clients setting a boundary of like actually I can't you know, come in at that
For
time.
sure.
Like
Yeah.
my schedule is my schedule. I have
Yeah.
the answer is no. Or the jokes about the
Yeah.
memes of a barber showing up to a party and someone at the party being like, "Hey, can you come here right now?" Like, no, I
Mhm,
don't
for
carry my
sure. Yeah.
clippers everywhere. My clippers aren't
Yep.
on me always. But
Exactly.
how like did something happen for you to start to focus on that? Like was that a more recent of like, man, I feel like I'm struggling right now, so I need to focus more. I need to create more rhythms. Like was that more recent for you or has it been on your mind for a while?
I feel like the pandemic definitely switched up a lot of my mentality. Um, and even through the passings of my grandparents too, within the pandemic, definitely has put me into a different position. Um, but just loving the fact that I'm in control of my own feelings and knowing when to control or react to certain situations. has definitely helped me. Meditation overall has definitely helped me, kind of relax into that point now. But in order for me to even just get into that zone, definitely I always think about, how grateful we're still here after the pandemic, right? What even just as barbers, like everything was still unknown for like half a year, even for a year. Like we weren't even in the shops yet, right? So the fact that we're back to normal, full speed ahead, I think it encouraged me to take advantage of that time and even just that relationship with my client who's still stuck with me, through the pandemic, and to really, focus my services towards them versus just cutting hair. And you said it like earlier, right? Like, you know, mental awareness is like really a huge thing. Even as an educator, it's like, you can't be educating while you're worried about what someone is thinking about you, right? Versus even like when you're 30 minutes behind a client, like even that overall, like if you're 30 minutes behind a client, then that sets you back, and then that sets your quality back too. You want to be worrying about that. You want to be focused on what you can control in the meantime, if that does happen.
One of the past episodes, shout out to Jackson Sarter, was he was actually the first guest that I had on. Yeah, we talked about just mental health, but specifically for barbers, right? And we talk a lot about, you know, barbershops being a space, obviously, for clients. Like going and getting your haircut can be great for your mental
Hmm.
health because you're going and getting served, and it's just like a rhythm in your life that can be really great for clients. But when you think about the barber, like who's serving, like it's exhausting to serve, like to be the one serving the community, serving however many clients you see a day, having maybe, hours of conversation, all the small
Hmm.
talk in a barber and remembering all the
Oh
little things
man.
about your clients and,
Yeah.
trying to remember what you did last time, or it's mentally exhausting I
Hmm.
mean, we're in the service industry, and
Yep.
it's difficult to give a good service if you're not in like a healthy place yourself. Like that's where burnout can come in, and that's where um you're not even going to be able to perform or deliver a great service if you're just not in a good place yourself. And so it's there's like, I feel like a lot actually on the line for a barber's
Hmm.
career if we neglect, the importance of like taking care of yourself, or
For
taking a
sure.
lunch, dude.
Oh,
I'm like,
taking
hey,
like even like a
take a
10-15
lunch.
minute break.
Some hours be just
Oh man.
screw, I cannot take a lunch. I'm like, take a lunch.
Take a bathroom
Go
break.
eat, man.
Go pee, you know what I mean? Like I think that's important. Some people just
Exactly.
be holding themselves till the whole day. Sometimes
Yep.
it's like, dude,
It's
drink
tough,
some
man.
water, you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
seriously, it's bad.
yeah.
Well, man, this is good conversation here. I'm enjoying this. Now I feel like we even just talked about something super important too for barbers that are in barber school right now, who are considering just the longevity of their career, things that even
Hmm.
go beyond learning the technical aspects of cutting hair. Um, but yeah, what kind of advice? We'll kind of wrap up here with some final thoughts. Like any advice that you'd give for barbers, that are on the up, that are coming up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously coming into a space now where everything's just so modern and technically advanced, and you can learn literally anything off YouTube now, and anybody can be great as a barber. Um, always, I feel like personally for me, always educate yourself and remain educated. Um, never think that there's not enough education for you even past cutting hair, right? I mean, books have definitely been in favor of me this whole past 2 years, past the pandemic, and just reading overall has given me a different outlook on life, and the way that I want to look at it. But for just barbering specifically, just keep going, because everything is so beautiful in the unknown, right? And again, I coming from a space where I took a chance in barber college. I didn't even know that it was even going to be at this point now, where everything is just so elevated, right? So I took a chance on that. So if you can take a chance on yourself and believe that you're going to go somewhere with barbering without having to expect you know money coming out of it, I feel like stray away from the money portion and just keep going and believing that, you're going to make yourself something out of barbering one day for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, man. We'll kind of wrap up there. I'm gonna include obviously all like links in the show notes here for everyone to follow you. One thing I wanted to end with though, I mean you slid in there was hope I'm pronouncing this right, Educo Academy, right? Can you just talk to us a
Yes.
little bit about that? Because that actually, who knows, they'll hopefully be following you, and obviously you're an educator, so maybe if you're in their city, they can be on the lookout to potentially even take a class. But can you just talk to us briefly even about Educo and what that is and what we could even expect from it moving forward?
Yeah, so with the JUCO right now, obviously we're taking a step forward from Paradox Education. If I could give you guys a gist of what it is, it's just, an elevated education outside of Paradox Education. And I don't want to say anything more than that because we got big future plans for it, and I like to not say something before we do. So yeah,
I like the
I
tease.
mean,
That's a good trailer.
yeah,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
I'll include links to JUCO, to Paradox, to Zach's, his Instagram. Probably even include like statement in there as well. But man, this conversation has been great, Zach. I really appreciate your time. After a few
appreciate you.
months, we made it happen, and yeah, man, I know this is gonna be an episode that people take a lot of wisdom from. So we appreciate it.
For sure. No, I appreciate you,
Cool.
pal. Thank
Of
you.
course, man. Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond Barber School. If you enjoyed it and want to learn more from my content, again, be sure to subscribe to my weekly newsletter called The Guideline. My email newsletter is the best place to stay connected to all things Barberdoza. You can sign up through the link in the show notes or directly on my website at barberdoza.com. While you're at it, leave the show a review on Apple Podcasts. I'd love to hear what you think of it. This podcast, like everything I do, is made for barbers by a barber. I'm on a mission to enable barbers with business skills that will help them ultimately achieve their goals. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you next time.